Do you wish you could get virtual attendees to turn their cameras on? Is engagement the number one issue on your virtual meetings? Do you want your meeting to be the most engaging virtual meeting? Well, welcome to the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. In this podcast, we'll talk to the top people around the world in virtual meetings and give you, the listener, the best ideas to host engaging virtual meetings. Make sure that you click subscribe so you can get the latest episode of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. Now, let's welcome your host, the author of the #1 Amazon hot new release, Engaging Virtual Meetings, John Chen. All right. Well, happy week to you. We just had an 80-degree day here in Seattle. And what's the good news I have to share? I just discovered I am the National Speakers Association Member of the Year here in the Northwest. If you are a speaker and you don't know about National Speakers Association, make sure and check it out. All right. And the Mariners won last night. So in our short version of baseball, that was actually good. It was 8-1 last night. But today we're not talking about baseball, but we are talking about data and statistics and amazing other types of things. Let's welcome our podcast guest today, Jude Barak. Hey, Jude, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm fine. How are you?
Doing fantastic. I love the bookshelves back there. Can I ask, what's one of your favorite books?
Oh, most of them are just sci-fi and fantasy. I'm a geek. So my bookshelf is combined mostly of these books.
Who's your favorite in sci-fi? I'm a pretty big sci-fi fan.
Wow, I think that Heinlein is one of my favorites. And when it comes to, the classics, obviously. Nowadays, I really like Brandon Sanderson. This is more into fantasy. Ursula Le Guin, she's wonderful. Oh, it's very hard. It's like to ask which one is my favorite child.
And then it's all of them, right?
Yeah, and it depends also on the season in life.
Excellent. Well, good. Well, love to, thanks for sharing, all right, some of your favorites with there. So my friends who don't know you, Jude, why don't you just take a moment to introduce yourself, who you are and what you do?
Okay, so I'm a geek, like I said before. I live in Israel. I operate from Tel Aviv. I operate in Israel and outside of Israel. Just came back from Dubai 2 days ago. I love consulting. I love data. I wasn't a data person. I'm what I say a non-numbers or non-data person. But since I've been working for many years as project manager, and I needed to always go around data and to present it, I guess that nowadays, or for the past 10 years, I'm entitled to combine all these passion areas of mine, which are consulting and data and analyzing and presenting. So that's what I do. I mostly work with either startups on developing their presentation, investor decks, companies that need to show their board of directors how well they did, and especially when they need decision makers to say, I do, or sometimes even I don't, depends what they want to achieve. And that's what I do.
Now, sometimes it's harder to say I don't than it is I do, right? Like if you're an entrepreneur, you're used to saying, all right, we can do this, whatever. But learning how to say no to the things that don't make sense in your company and having the data to back it up. Again, something I'm sure you've seen too, where people, you give them the clear data and they still do it anyways, right?
Yeah, but mostly, I think I have the luxury that once people come to me, they already know that they don't know. And this is yeah, that's great. So they come and usually they do take my advices. Obviously, my advice needs to vary according to the people. After all, it's their data, it's their business. So many times I need to just understand what their needs are and to show them how to get their results, even if sometimes I think that maybe it's not the right decision they want people to make, but after all, in this case, they know what they want.
So my experience in presenting data, I did get to meet Edward Tufte while I was at Microsoft,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
And I did use his material, right? The things that I've learned in presenting data was that number one, you got to tell a story,
Right.
which is the data should right. You're trying to analyze it and do a shortcut for people to take a lot of data, right, and make it so that everyone can understand ideally and maybe make a decision or whatever it is that analyze it. Those were some of the things that I learned, and I definitely took the less is more approach in terms of charting or graphing. But I'd love to curious, Jude, what are some of the key things that you do or that are unique to the way that you present data?
First of all, sometimes I say that chart is okay, but only if people can understand it and it makes it easier for them to understand the data. Sometimes just writing 45% in bold letters can be easier for people to understand than just show a pie chart that says 45%. So always try to put yourself in the shoes of the person who needs to figure out what it's all about. And sometimes to tell a story is easier. Sometimes to take large numbers and chunk them into smaller numbers. So yeah, it's not 100% the data. It's a little bit of a lookalike data. But think about what you want, what the message is, or what the story. And yeah, I do agree. There is a story here. It's funny. I just came back. I told you I came back from Dubai,
Yeah.
and I gave there a lecture to executive assistants of the largest companies, I guess, global companies. And I started by telling them what's this technique that's called storytelling. You know, there's the hero's journey. It's a
Right.
very well known. So I was talking about it, and then I just marked, you know, like an X on the hero's journey, and they said, no, we're not talking here about, you know, Lord of the Rings and Frodo and Gandalf. But still, we need to tell a story to just, you know, show the data. It means nothing. You have to give it context. You have to make it animated many times so people can see a process, not just data. You want to just send data, send the Excel file, you know, draft the chart on the Excel file. Great. But I don't think that when you talk to other people, when you're in front of other people, that you just need to show data, present insights. Let the data back up your insights, your story, your goals, your the decision you want other people to make, not just the data. And it's funny because many times I say, don't present the data, just use it as a backup.
So I'm kind of curious too, because I now finally in the last 3 years have done significant work with Saudi Arabia, and many people here in the United States are intensely curious because most people do not have a direct connection or have not yet visited places like Dubai or Saudi Arabia. I'm curious if you could tell me like what you found similar or what you found different in the two cultures. Like for me, it was different in the way the class interacted. Like they did start out generally more quiet, and then they would start to like if you could gain their trust, they would open up. The universality that I loved about it is that the Saudi Arabians have the exact same challenges in team building, right? Communication and trust are still like the top challenges, and that universally, was still there in Saudi Arabia during my time teaching them team building. I'm curious what you saw.
So in Saudi Arabia, I haven't been there. Unfortunately, we still, Israelis cannot travel to Saudi Arabia yet. Hopefully it will change. Dubai is also quite new to the Israeli market. It
Right.
only opened for us in the past, I think, 2 or 3, no, I think 3 years or so.
That's it.
So
Three.
from,
Oh, really?
yeah,
I
that's
didn't know it
all.
was that
Yeah,
recent.
three,
Yeah.
maybe four. Yeah, it's recent.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know what to expect. For me, Dubai was a very pleasant surprise because I was expecting a traditional society. I was expecting, even dressing up, I took, longer sleeves.
Right. Right.
But getting there, it's such a cosmopolitan city.
Right.
Um, I don't even say about how modern it is. Oh, the whole Dubai city, I think it's maybe 20 years max.
Hmm.
So it's very modern. but everybody there is so tolerant and everybody's accepted. I was really enjoying seeing most of my participants were women, as I said, executive assistants, mostly women.
Yes.
And one of the lecturers asked them, "What do you like about Dubai?" Because some of them were from Dubai,
Hmm.
residents in Dubai, and the other came from other parts of the world.
Yes.
So all those women, they started by saying safety, safety, safety. Yeah. So the next day, I just took a few of them aside and they said, "When you say safety, what did you mean by it? Because we don't think about it." So some of them come from other parts of the world, and they say that for them, as women walking in the evening after dark, they don't feel very safe. And, culture-wise, it's not always very appropriate. While in Dubai, you can just walk whenever you want, wherever you want, however you want.
Wow.
But on the other hand, people are so respectful that I haven't seen men or women, just walking in shorts and tank tops or something.
Hmm.
So it was so nice to see the respect both ways. Now, when it comes to the actual business life or like you say, training, I
Yeah.
think it's universal. People start when they're very quiet, they keep to themselves. And, after a few hours together, they start joking a little bit and start sharing their experiences.
Yes.
On the second day, we could already talk about challenges that people have. But this is, I guess, everywhere. I have a feeling that if you do it in, I don't know, Shanghai, and then in Riyadh, in Jerusalem, or in San Diego, or New York, it will be almost the same. Just the time might change. Maybe in some places it will take a little bit longer, but at the end, people will share.
Oh, it's striking that safety is really one of the key parts. I do know that Dubai is definitely one of the most more modern in that area. Some people have been calling it kind of like the Las Vegas of the Middle East because of how much newness is there. But it's great to see the newness and ideas come into its openness of new cultures and outside and other types. And again, things like this for safety, I think are key. So that's a great piece too. It's again, if you've never been there too, and that's where your first response to it. My very good friend Linda Botts had traveled there, and she was one of the first to refute. Like also traveling into those countries as a woman, you have a lot of questions, and she was the first to say, "It's like going, I've never been to a place more respectful, more amazing, more welcoming." Right? It goes like, I think America could take a couple lessons, right?
Oh
From
yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, I was overwhelmed at how non-traditional this place is, and yet people tend to respect the traditions. I don't know how to even explain it exactly.
Well, for me, I can tell you too, it's just watching how they have integrated their culture into everyday life. So for instance, like every hotel room has a directional sticker that will tell you which direction the sun is for prayer, right?
Yeah,
Another
yeah.
one is that when you go to like a little strip mall, they have a prayer mat that can be rolled in so it stays dry and then can be rolled out, right, if it is dry, so that you can do that. And so it's I don't, even here in America, I don't think really religion is supported to the level like it is because it's law there, right, in that country. And so I thought there's unique ways that we don't normally see, at least here in America, for ways to support their beliefs and their religion.
Yes, and also, again, it was surprising, and I really liked it that at some point, we are used to having coffee break or lunch break,
Right.
and there at some point there was a prayer break.
Have to have mandatory.
So yeah, and it was so well accepted, everybody, oh sure. I mean, yeah, we'll have coffee now instead of later because now it's a prayer time.
That's right.
So yeah, and it was so naturally integrated within the conference, and
Hmm.
yeah, I think that it's a very interesting place to go to, and I can't wait for the next time to be invited to give a speech there. Yeah, and the way it was organized, and the way they welcomed me over, and the car taking me from the airport and the suite and
Oh
the
yeah,
attention to
wow.
details. Yeah, and how are you going to, and have you arrived safely? And do you need anything? So it was really, really very, for me, it was a great experience. Can't wait for the next one.
Well, love the hospitality, and let's go to another foreign country, which is the world of virtual and online, right? Which was definitely
Yes.
foreign to a lot of people. I'm curious about what have you seen in the last 3 years that are like the best practices or the best virtual or hybrid meetings you've seen in the last 3 years?
Okay, so first of all, like you, I started with virtual workshops or training long before COVID. I
Hmm.
think that Zoom was maybe it's how long? About 7 years, 8 years, 6 years, something like this. So I think I started on Zoom and I thought, wow, that's the platform that's made for me. I don't need to go look for parking, spend hours on the road. I really enjoyed it. So when COVID hit and everybody found out about Zoom and other platforms, of course, for me, I felt very comfortable so I could even help others in moving to this platform. Well, obviously, I like it, but when it's mistreated or misused, that's terrible. I think that many times people think that if they're on Zoom, it's like, okay, so I'm at home. I can eat now. I can just, lay back on the sofa, chat with my somebody else over there. And this is something that for me, it's very disturbing. How do you feel about it?
It introduced. We're talking about culture, right? It introduced a whole new set of cultural norms and misnorms. And what I mean by that is that one is now, and I discovered Zoom 2015. I've been online for, of course, 35 years. And I think when Skype finally like was on its decline, I was looking for a new virtual platform, and my friend said her college had just investigated 20 plus virtual platforms, and they picked Zoom. Right, so Zoom was actually winning the academic field like 5 to 10 years before the pandemic hit, before it became
Yeah.
really a thing. And they were just quietly knocking it away, but doing it because they had better features. They had breakouts rooms very early on, all the things that the academia was asking for. And so we started using it on an everyday basis. The great parts about it is that we were already using it, even as a small company, to do things like avoid traffic, which is like, I think it's number one great feature.
Yeah.
We were able to share things. We were able to share documents, right? So we're working on, collaboratively working on things together, clearly delegating tasks to each other. And so having that continual practice on a platform before everything hit was really the key. And then it became the platform, which was great because you could pick anything, but to pick the winner means that you already have a head start. Of course, it has all of its challenges. People doing makeup, right? They're like cleaning their teeth in a camera, and they don't know that the camera is actually broadcasting to everybody. And we've categorized some of the worst, right? Some of the worst people going to the toilet, of course, while still in a meeting, not knowing their camera's on, and we've helped some of those things. So I think it's just like anything. Right? It's like if like again, when you travel to a foreign country, you don't know if the most innocuous act would actually offend somebody on the other side if you don't know their culture.
Right.
And so what happened was though is that everybody was developing the culture at the same time. What I love to tell people is 330 people moved to Zoom within 2 months in March of 2020. And that's almost the entire population of the United States. So imagine that the entire population of the United States moved in somewhere, right? And then think, how are you going to do that and not have some problems, right? And everybody had, all the traditional problems that we know about, from the basic connection things to, catastrophic mistakes that have gone viral.
Yeah. No, that's true. But however, I think that everybody also realized that this is the virtual meetings, presentations, everything is here to stay. It will change sometimes. There will be one of the things that I love about virtual.
Mm.
going virtual is that, once CEOs expected me to come to a meeting to their offices just because it was respectful. So they expected me as their vendors, their supply, their consultant to show up and to make the effort. Nowadays, they realize that even for them, it's better. Because if I go there, the chit chat and the coffee and the going around and saying hi to everybody.
Yeah.
So it's changed the mindset of CEOs, and it's not a question of being respectful anymore. It's just very technical. Is it better to meet in person, or is it more efficient to just make a Zoom call? And another thing that usually for me it helps me sell the virtual meetings is that we can record in this way. If I want later to go back, if something's not clear for me, it's easier for me to recall what was said in the meeting.
Yeah.
So this is a very good point that I always use when I see that somebody is, well, if he's reluctant, I won't do it. But, if he's just contemplating, I'll tell him. And usually it helps me sell and seal the deal.
Yeah, for me, I feel like, because I have clocked 14 meetings in a day. I don't recommend that, but I'm
Oh,
just saying
no.
that it would be almost impossible to do that in the in-person world because of the drive time and the parking and the chit chat and the coffee and all the other stuff. And I do think you can build better relationship with that, all that other stuff when it happens. But sometimes, either when you're selling or you're already in the relationship and you're to the transactional part, like let's get some stuff done. Yeah, again, every CEO I'm sure is busy on time. That's the one thing nobody has more of, and so being able to finish their things faster, I think, are really key. I'm curious then from your viewpoint, Jude. Right, the world is changing. Right, the world is now reopening back up. I'm curious what you hear from your executive side about where is virtual, where is hybrid, and where is in person now.
Yeah. So I think that in person is when you start a relationship. It's something you said. So maybe, just the first meeting to just assess if we want to work together, that's still okay to have online, just exchange information. That's who I am, that's who you are. But the next meeting where we actually start maybe brainstorming or getting to know each other a little bit better, it is, I think, and they think that it's better to do it in person. Later on, when it's already just, changing info, looking at things, sharing screens, exchanging information and ideas, that's just fine to do it online. So that would be usually virtually. Hybrid is something that I feel, or at least from what I can see here, it's still not 100%. It's difficult. Let's say it's more difficult to be hybrid than either virtual or in person, because those people who are online, they get forgotten in a way. And the people who are in the room, they tend to talk to each other. So hybrid is still a little bit mystery, if I can say. And I guess that this is where your expertise can assist a lot of these things. Because virtual, okay. In person, okay. I think that the challenge is hybrid.
Yeah, that's a great one, Jude. That I'm hearing two key things, which is hybrid is challenging, and the other one is hybrid is too expensive. And I don't think it has to be that way, but the challenge is, and usually for the virtual attendee, right? Sometimes for the in-person attendee, but usually for the virtual attendee because they get treated as a second-class citizen. And what I mean by that is that some meetings run all the way through and they forget there's even a virtual audience, right? So you need a skilled host or facilitator or presenter who's going to change their style slightly to remember there's a virtual audience, right? You have to pay attention back to the same things like chat or whatever else that you have. The other one that I find all the time, in-person people forget about the virtual audience, and usually it's with a microphone, right? Which is that if an in-person starts talking and you have a setup where you have usually like handhelds or lavalier microphones, nobody can hear them. Nobody can hear them. And so therefore there's this whole segment where the speaker's doing this and it's like, uh-huh.
Yeah.
All right. And it's like that person's on mute, compared to everyone else. And so you just lose a whole context. And I find it's one of the most requested things when I'm a virtual MC is for them is going, Mike, or repeat the question, Mike, and then the speaker, right? Even though we coach them all, most speakers, probably 80% of the speakers, are not like hybrid forward, meaning that they remember to repeat the question in a way that the virtual audience can understand. And then I'll even to give an auditory clue, saying, right, as that we're taking a question from the in-person audience. They don't have a mic, but so I'll repeat the question. That's all they have to say to let the virtual people know they're taking care of it, but almost nobody does it.
Yeah, so I guess this is the big challenge, really. And what I have seen sometimes when it's just in a conference room, in a small meeting room, not in a conference, but in a meeting room, some of the companies already have the proper equipment, so they have the mics, the mics in
Big
the
array in the
room,
room, yeah.
and even more than one screen when different people can see the virtual audience. And nowadays, I think that at least Teams, and I think that Zoom as well, enables you to sit everybody together.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is one of the things that I'm working on. I actually built what I call hybrid in a box. And hybrid in a box has a high-end computer with 3 screens total. It has a total of 8 remote microphones. Comes with its own streaming. And so now I can roll a box in and start producing a high-end high-end hybrid within an hour, because everything is all plugged in and set up. That was the challenge that I was having, is that it does require so much equipment that it took me 8 hours to prep it and then set it all up. And now I've got it down to less than 60 minutes. And the key, I think the other part too, multi-cameras. Right. If you're going to do a great hybrid, I think you need multiple cameras. And my default is I do like a wide shot of the stage, right? A tight close up so that if you stop walking, Jude, I can follow you. And then the other one that most people forget too, the audience camera. It's so
Yeah.
easy, but so many people forget to put an audience camera in, and because they want to know what it looks like, and I also want to know who's talking when they're asking a question. So
I think that, well, I guess that both of us have enough seniority in the world to remember how stages used to be once, when we didn't even have big screens for presentations. But later on, most conference rooms and the convention centers already had those little monitors where the speaker could see his notes, and you already had maybe 2 screens, and the presenter was in the middle. So I guess that maybe in the next really quick time, maybe few months, maybe a year or so, I guess that the conference rooms, they will have to manage it and to start having all this equipment as a built-in equipment, just like we nowadays have these monitors, we have these mics, we have all the equipment. It should be really as a standard issue when you have a conference. The problem might still be in the corporates, because they tend to have nowadays a lot of meetings, whether are smaller meetings or larger meetings. And this is where they need a lot of assistance, like the one you give. I mean, I can already think about at least 4 companies here in Israel that could use a conversation with you to explain to them how to do it correctly.
well, I got to meet the people at the Coca-Cola learning facility, and it's really cool that they have made a purpose-built studio for this. So they have the wide open space. They can put their product, let's say the fountain dispenser training is something that's super important to them. So they have multiple camera angles they can go through, and so somebody can present this. They can do it live, right? So that means they can take questions from people around the world because they're an international company. And so I thought it was great that they were using, some corporations, especially corporations, because they got the budget, right? Are going forward. They are looking about how to use that meeting and that training in a futuristic way, so it's better. And again, I think it's better too because a lot of times they can centralize that training and not have to drive and fly to all these places to like train everybody. With
Mhm.
that, Jude, I think you may spend a good portion of your time looking at the future. I'm curious, what do you see as the future of virtual and hybrid in your world?
Again, I think that both of them are the future. It's not that we won't meet in person, and it's not that there won't be conventions because people like the networking and the gathering. So I guess that we'll still have conferences in person, but there are a lot of people who won't be able to participate, whether it's time issue, flight issue, political issues, any other things. So hybrid is the future. 100% hybrid is the future. It's like a little bit when I talk about AR, not AI, AR, virtual, I forgot now the name, when you see things through those lenses.
Augmented reality, AR.
Augmented reality, exactly,
I'll
AR.
take future tech for 400. Back to you, Jude.
Yeah. So AR, it's still developing, and people at the moment still, they just look at it as something futuristic. But at some point, it will also be a part of the virtual and hybrid and world, because many times we'll need to see things that are not just two-dimensional, but augmented reality. I have seen, luckily I work a lot with startups, and I have this, again, it's a love of mine to see what they're developing. And so I saw, with my own eyes through lenses, how a doctor performs a surgery, a robotic surgery, and he has people around him who are watching, learning, and even commenting on different locations while he's performing this surgery. So if you ask me what the future is, this is part of the future. And that's also a hybrid presence where people do things together in different locations with different tools.
Well, Jude, one of the things that I talked about 10 years even before pandemic was something I call digitally assisted living, right? Or DAL. And that's where things are better, right? Because they're on virtual. So to me, one of them could be like this. This is where like you can do things like this, which is I'm talking to Jude.
Yeah.
Jude shares her website, and I can look it up while we're talking, right, and find out here. These are her latest blog posts. She helps in business presentations, investor presentations, right? There's a new service for startups, right? But you're really about presenting complex information and data. And the whole key is how can I do this, right? People wonder why I have so many screens here around here. So this is part of this is that I'm able to monitor right more stuff than other people by doing this, and I think it's one of the key advantages. It's the short version of digitally assisted living is right now is that you can get more information while you're meeting, and then augmented reality just says that you can do it in anywhere in the world, not just in your setup, right? Obviously, I have a hard time doing this while I walk around, but in augmented reality, that you could be getting this type of data all the time. So this is a good question. Then I would love to hear a great story about you. You present complex data, right? Information and data. And I'd just love to hear a story about what was like one of your biggest challenges and right and how could you simplify it. So of course like things in Tufty that I learned is like one of the famous ones is Napoleon's army. There's this massive chart that shows the decline of Napoleon's army,
Yeah.
right? Visually, and they're actually showing I think they said like 15 to 20 different axes of data. The easy
Wow.
one is the size of the army, but and then it was over time, right? Like there was one section where this group split off and then it disappeared to zero. And we're like, what's that? Well, the story was that half of his armies chose to try and take a shortcut across a frozen lake, and the frozen lake cracked underneath their weight and they lost the whole army. And so, those were the interesting things. So I'd love to hear, how a great story about how you took some challenging or complex data and really tried to find a way to tell that story.
Yeah. So I will tell it's very simple, but I think that most people can relate to it. P&Ls and budget versus allocations or
Yes.
what's really being done. So I had this accountant, and the person who hired me was a CEO who told me he always gives me so much information. I just want the bottom lines. I want to understand if we're doing well or we're not doing well. I don't really care about all the nitty-gritty. So now I have to sit with this accountant who has this P&L over, year over year, month over month, and this is important and that is important. And no, but he has to know how much we paid for that specific project or whatever. And I know that the CEO doesn't care about how much is specific. Now, just getting him to change his mindset and to understand that not everything is as important. And that sometimes it's easier to start with the bottom lines. And then if the CEO will want to know anything else, he will ask and we can prepare. And I said, the CEO doesn't limit you the number of slides you can use in a presentation. So we can start and we can have the other slides in case you need them. You can always present them. I showed him how we can, switch between slides and do a non-linear presentation. So at the moment, it's the time where he sends me the reports. He doesn't even speak to me. He sends me whatever he has, and he say, what needs to be done with it. and yeah, but a report of, I think he had there about 20 columns and about 30 or 40 rows in Excel. That's what he used to, just copy and paste it. And now he has just a few boxes I just need to change the numbers and automatically they change. And I have one chart that just shows that was what we expected. This is what actually happened, and that's it. And it's animated. So if he asks me to, I said, which month do you want to talk about?
Right.
Okay, so this is the one that you'll have to click, talk, and then click next, and the rest of them will come after it. And he's so used to it now that he says, it took him a while, but it took him a time to say, I never thought that it should be so simple.
And that's where the value is taking complex data sets, making them so simple. In the end, right, many CEOs have to make a decision they should make decisions off of less, key performance indicators, not more. You get too many and you can't keep track of them all.
So again, and these are also the very detailed people who need everything. So I said, okay, I understand. Yeah, you do need the details. That's why you have this wonderful Excel. But when you talk to other people who don't know the numbers that well as you, and they don't have the time to start, just researching the numbers,
Right.
give them the bottom lines, give them the insights.
Yes.
If they'll need more information, they will ask you for it, or you can send it to them later. We know, John, because we attend the same conferences and everything, that nowadays we can have one PowerPoint that can also become as a with the speaker notes. You're using the speaker notes, but we can actually prepare reports there.
The
And
handout. Yes.
all the data that needs to be done, just okay, I'll send you a PDF with all the data, whether it's before, whether it's during or after. And a lot of people now, even the CEOs themselves, they know somebody told them that they need better presentations. So that's why I say I'm lucky, because usually when they get to me, somebody already told them, no, it can be this way. When it comes to startup and investor, the problem with startups is they usually, they have two types of problems. So one challenge is to have the actual numbers. They go to market potentials and they show the larger markets that have nothing to do with their actual product. So we need to work on the data itself. But investors, they don't have the time to start reading all those things, all that information and all those surveys. They want you to read them, you as the entrepreneur. They just want to see that there is a CAGR. They just want to see that there's a potential. And especially they want to see that you've done your homework, that you know what you're talking about. So this is one when they have too much information. The other ones are the ones that, they ask them, what's the business model?
Yeah.
B2B. Okay, B2B. So, and how are you going to make money exactly? And things like this. So yeah, this is one way of it is complex information, it is complex data, and we have to make it simple enough for an investor to say, okay, I'm interested. Once the investor is interested, that's it. You don't need a presentation. Now you need to start working on numbers, on demos, on whatever. In the corporate world, one of the things that people don't treat as data is many times it's tenders. When they have to go now and bid, and they have these large tenders. And what they usually do, they'll send their business presentation.
Yeah.
But it's not the right presentation, because you have to show how you exactly, somebody, when they do all these tenders, they have a problem, they have a challenge, and they need companies to come and bid now and show them how they can address this challenge.
Yes.
So your presentation, if you want to be the person to get this job, you have to show them why you are exactly the right person for the job. Meaning, you need to show success stories, or to show how you address these issues. What are your suggestions? But very specific to what you were asked to do. And this is also complex information. Many times it's engineering. So you know what engineers do. They start putting these schematics, and they show drawings that nobody understands but them. Yeah, when you be able to already sit with the engineer, that's fine. Just open the big sheet of whatever, and both of you speak the same language. But when you have to speak to the procurement department, they don't understand it. They just want to know why you know exactly what you're doing and how you're going to solve their problem. That's the information they want. And that's the complex data you need to show them in a presentation. That's also data. It's business data.
All right, Jude. Well, we'll take our complex information and see if we can simplify it. If you want people to remember only one thing from this interview, what do you think is the one thing you want them to remember, Jude?
So one for me, one for you. For me, I want to remember the data is not just numbers. The data is more than numbers. It always needs context, and it needs to be presented for those people who have no idea about the data. And for you, I think that hybrid is the challenge. And this is where people need a lot of assistance and a lot of John Chen time.
Jude, you'll love this. One of my, I'll share one of the facts to help support what you're saying, which is that accessibility of the virtual part of hybrid. In one of our conferences, 539 people registered virtual. There were 950, in person. But the virtual they said, without this virtual, we could not be here. Because of the budget.
You know that I'm supportive of it, because you know that I've attended twice the conference where you were the MC for the virtual world. One I was in person, that was in Florida. That was the presentation summit.
Yes.
In Florida, and I was in person, and I had this FOMO of not being in the virtual world, because everybody said what John is doing there. And we were trying to understand what's going on. So the next year I didn't come to, where was it? I think it was maybe in San Diego, or doesn't matter, but I stayed at home, and I was part of your community. And it was so good that I don't want Rick Altman to hear that, but I would probably go more on the virtual rather than in person.
Well, they're going to have both again this year. And we'll give a shout out to our good friend Rick Altman, betterpresenting.com/summit. Yes, I will be the virtual MC. And yes, Jude, for the first time this year, because he split, I'm actually going to be able to attend the in-person before the virtual. And one of the things I'm going to do is most likely make some virtual backgrounds like this from the in-person site and bring them to you, the virtual, if you are going to attend virtual. So
yeah, I will attend virtual this year. Even if I would, I can't make it on those dates. But yes, that's a wonderful idea. And just curiosity on this, the virtual art, speakers going to actually talk to the virtual world, or are these going to be some of the recordings? How it's going to work?
This is a great sidebar, Jude, because like we know Rick. Rick really strives for excellence, which I love. And for 2 years, he really worked on simultaneous hybrid. And
Yeah.
in the end, he came away with two factors, which is the way he wanted to do it was expensive. And with the format of his conference, it wasn't enough. Like you need a big enough virtual audience to justify all that tech. All right. And the second one, he says, like, he just felt like you had to compromise both experiences and not get the best out of it. So he's doing in person, not recorded, right? It's going to be live. It's a smaller venue. And so there's a bunch of things that are around that. And now this means that he got his presenters though to present twice. And so now everyone who's presenting virtual will be completely virtual. So yeah,
Wow.
they have to talk to virtual, Jude. They're only
That's
can talk
wonderful.
to
I
virtual.
mean, it's so Rick Altman, really. I mean, this is a kudos for him. He's so professional and he really wants the best for whoever attends the meeting.
I
Yeah.
can't, yeah, I can't wait to see the result of it. And let's find out. I think, because we've had a couple of friends who said hybrid might be the worst of both worlds. And so maybe Rick's version of splitting this might actually optimize both experiences. I don't know, but we're going to find out.
Yeah, but still, I think that you have plenty to do with the hybrid because, again, you asked me, and I think that this is going to be the future, whether
Yes.
it's small meetings or large conferences. And then I'm sure that, the challenge can be met, and you already found some very good solution for it.
I think the challenge can be met, and I think it can be done for budgets less than people that are complaining about now. And so I just think it's like all solutions, right? You have to find the best aspects and apply them in the best ways. And I think you can
Mhm.
do that in a cost-effective manner. A lot of the problems we have are not hard problems like technical problems. By the time they're done, they turn out to be soft problems. They're human problems that, right, we're just not doing it right, or we don't have the, practices to do it right. So.
Yes, because I think that once again, I'm thinking more of the corporate world at the
Sure.
moment. But
Sure.
I think that this is just a one-time investment, to just create a good meeting room when people can have good meetings, hybrid meetings.
Yeah.
It shouldn't really be such a high cost. I mean, just
Nope.
once you need a few cameras, you need a few mics and a few screens and somebody who knows what he's doing and how to train the people, and that's it. So it's not such a big thing, but people need to be aware of it. And I'm so glad that you are raising the awareness to this type of meetings because everything is educating people after all.
Oh, well, thank you, Jude. And I love that, right? You're an instructor too. You're an entrepreneur as well as a coach to many, many people. And so I think you're doing the thing too, which is making presentation, especially presentation of complex data, easier. Anytime we have that type of skill, I think that we're making this world a better place and a more understandable place. Right, Jude?
Right.
So, and
100% right.
Jude, thank you so much for tuning in from so far away. I look forward to seeing you online as usual, and it's been my honor and pleasure to get the chance to meet you over the last couple of years, even though we've never met face to face yet.
That's true. I hope that we will be able to meet face to face at some point, but really with you, even virtual feels like we've known each other for a long time.
Okay, wait, then would this be the right sign to show today?
L'chaim!
There we go.
Yeah, I'm glitching.
Thanks again, Jude, for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, this is John Chen, and we just wrapped up another engaging virtual podcast with the one and only Jude Barak, who is presenting complex information and data and just making it simple and easy. We put the links inside there. Make sure and check it out. Make sure and subscribe to our brand new Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast, engagingvirtualmeetings.online. We're releasing an episode every week. We already have a year's worth of content there, so you're going to get something new every week. And if you're watching this video, make sure and click subscribe. Thanks to our guests who showed up online, Nicole Smith, and of course, Stephanie Jones. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time. This is John Chen, the author of the Amazon #1 hot new release, Engaging Virtual Meetings. I personally want to say thank you for listening to the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. It is my passion to help you eliminate bad virtual meetings. Make sure that you click subscribe so that you can get the latest episode of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast with all of the latest ideas. Hey, I want to meet you. If you want to talk about a virtual meeting challenge, or if you want to be the next guest on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast, just go to engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet. That's engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet, MEET, and find your best time to meet up. Thank you, and I look forward to engaging with you online.